Hello and welcome to another edition of the Rider Rumblings podcast. This is episode 184. I am Taylor Shire. He is Darrell Davis, and we're talking about plenty of Rider football things this week. We've got the Grey Cup announcement that is coming to Regina in 2027. And of course, we're looking back at the regular season finale between the Riders and the BC Lions, which was an interesting final game of the regular season, a loss for the Riders, meaningless in the standings. But now we're also going to preview the West semifinal and look ahead to the West final, Darrell. Lots to unpack this week on the podcast.
Lots of football. I was at 3 football games this weekend, one Friday, one Saturday, one Sunday, Taylor. So if you want to talk football, it's kind of pouring out of my ears or so much of it. The Grey Cup announcement was kind of interesting that it's going to be November 7th, 2027, which is the earliest game. They've committed, the CFL has, to moving the schedule earlier. So that's good news. It might be a little bit warmer in Regina for the 2027 Grey Cup, and maybe the Roughriders will be in it. That'll be interesting to see how they manipulate their roster. Will Trevor Harris, the quarterback, be playing, and how many of these guys will still be around when the team is vying to be a home team in the 2027 Grey Cup?
Yeah, to me, I don't know if it feels like it's too soon to host, but I don't know how many other teams would have even bid on the 27 Grey Cup. They announced the Calgary Grey Cup last year ahead of for 2026. So I knew kind of the timing of the year was going to make sense for the Riders to announce this or some team to announce this. But 5 years will have spanned. So maybe in 2 years from now, I won't feel like it's too soon, but I feel like we did just have a Grey Cup here. And you know, we talk about fatigue from volunteers and fans and whatnot. I don't know if there's going to be much of that because, again, it's still 2 years away. But it's something to certainly think about.
Yeah, you're right. And the reason they do get it is because of the volunteer base quite a bit. And the Rough Riders could always use the cash. Who couldn't, to be honest, in the Canadian Football League? So they'll always be front and center every 5, maybe twice a decade. They would like to have it here. It makes sense financially. And other cities and other organizations probably aren't equipped and set up the same way the Rough Riders are in terms of the community involvement. So it's passing an opportunity, though, right? When you think about it, they're Montreal or Toronto. I know that they're bigger cities and it might get lost there. It never gets lost here. It's such a big event that you're right. In 2 years, Taylor, we might start looking forward to it again because it does wear out the community. It is a lot of work and it's a lot of activities. But in 5 years, with a 5-year gap between them, maybe it's going to be exciting again. But yeah, maybe there is a little bit of didn't this just happen here in Regina?
Maybe it's because it was 10 years between the previous, from 03 to 13 and then 13 again to 2022. I guess it was supposed to be in 20. Enough time had spanned. But the one thing that Craig Reynolds said in his media veil was that Mosaic Stadium is turnkey, right? You think about why the Riders didn't necessarily host at Taylor Field. Well, they didn't have the capacity to put in temporary seating every year and take it down. Now you just bring everybody in. Everything's on the footprint right next door at Real, and you can host a great party and a great game.
Yeah, everything's going to be indoors except the game, right?
Yeah.
All the parties indoors. And I know that there's always some businesses and cab drivers who say, you know what, we don't get much money out of this because everything is geared towards the indoor stuff. But that's part of the reason why the Grey Cup comes here is because those facilities are world-class and they can hold everything that the Grey Cup has to offer.
Well, let's talk about the last game of the regular season. We could talk about Saskatchewan's starting offense and how they played well. We could talk about how the Lions sort of clawed back into the game. We could talk about how the officiating might have helped the Lions claw back into that game. It was an interesting final game of the regular season. The Lions had everything to play for. They needed a win to clinch second. The Riders had nothing to play for, as we talked about last week. Irrelevant in the standings, not meaningless is how I was putting it. So it didn't mean anything. They'd still clinch first place. Sure, they would have liked to win and go out with a win, but it was a loss and an interesting one at that.
Yeah, strange one. And BC came in all fired up. That quick 63-yard touchdown play on the very first possession, the very first play actually that Nathan Rourke threw, the quarterback. We kept thinking, oh boy, they are pumped to play. But when you think about it, Saskatchewan needed to put their first stringers in. They hadn't used them a lot against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers the week before. So all of a sudden Trevor Harris is in there and he looked really sharp. You know, you and I have talked quite a bit over the season about him losing a little bit of his zip and, a bit of his not his enthusiasm. He's always enthusiastic, but he just didn't have that pizzazz that he might have had earlier in the season. And it looked like he got it back. That rest, that week of rest really helped out. I wanted him. I thought he should have played a full half, and he almost did. Turning it over to Jake Maier for the last 5 minutes of the first half was a good idea, and allowing Jake Maier to run through the whole second half with those last 5 minutes of a half, Taylor, are so important. And you can say, yeah, Jake Maier is an experienced quarterback, but running this offense in this situation, I think it's good for him to get that experience, because if Trevor Harris goes down, Jake Maier is the guy who has to step in and hold the fort. They don't need to play Jack Cohn at this stage of the season, but they do need to play Jake Maier just in case. If they get to Jack Cohn, their chances are done. But if they get to just Trevor Harris and Jake Maier has to go in, I think they still have a chance to win it. So they've given him some experience, but their starting quarterback, Trevor Harris, is still the key. They got him to work with his starting offense. Looks sharp, 11-12, 112 yards, plus a 13-yard run. Then he dialed up T-Mobile and got his butt yanked right out of there by the head coach. And I think that was a smart and safe proposal.
Yeah, I wonder how long Harris was scheduled to play, because that was maybe the best one-liner of the year from Mace after the game. After Harris did the T-Mobile celebration, Mace said, "Yeah, he called and I answered and I yanked him."
Well, he shouldn't be running, right? They don't want him.
When he was running, it was just like everybody sort of just held their breath for a second.
You could hear the whole stadium go.
And I not luckily, but the two BC Lions defenders could have easily corked him. I think they let up. In this day and age, you never really want to hit a quarterback anyway. You almost have to let him slide towards you. But that could have turned out a lot worse.
It sure could have, right? I still love the fact he calls himself Trevor Vick and the T-Mobile that he's running around out there. But he can't run. I think he just wanted to prove something, and he got flushed. I guess he had to run, but I don't think they want him doing that, especially late in the game. And that was a good idea to take him out and let Jake Maier play. You know what? Even with the backups in there against the frontline BC Lions, the Roughriders should have won that football game. They were a better team all around on all sides of the football all the way through that game. But two horrendous calls, which I wrote about in the Leader-Post, horrendous calls really hurt the Roughriders. And, I've called it the God Center for the last couple of years just because it will not leave the game alone. And this time it stepped in. I disagreed with the reception call on the game-winning touchdown, and some referee blew that whistle dead on the Tavon Campbell scoop and score. I just cannot believe that those two calls, both of them, went against the Roughriders and hurt the game. I don't say that games are won and lost by officials very often, but that one certainly was.
Yeah, we'll talk about the fumble first. I didn't hear, Keon Hatcher was reaching towards the end zone. The Riders knocked it out. It was clearly a fumble. Tavon Campbell scooped it up and ran. There was no player had stopped. I didn't hear the whistle. I don't think anybody else heard Tavon Campbell said he didn't hear the whistle. To me, I don't know. That's one of those ones where, sure, you meant to blow, or whatever, in hockey, right? If you mean to blow a whistle, or if you're in the act of blowing a whistle, the play is dead. If nobody lets up, I think you just have to overlook that and say, in spirit of the football play and everybody that was playing towards it, we're going to award a touchdown. But
the officials are supposed to. I've always thought and been told that the officials in that situation are supposed to let the play out.
They've been told that too.
Yes, right. They have. But you can clearly, on the replays, if you're listening for it, you can hear the whistle blow. And it was after the fumble, and it was basically after or at the same time as Tavon Campbell was scooping up the football. So that made no sense at all. Why is the whistle blowing there? You talked about Hatcher. Hatcher had made the catch. He's a receiver. Had made the catch for BC, was running towards the end zone, had possession, had established possession without a doubt, and was running 3 extra yards or so towards the end zone. Then he gets the ball knocked loose by two Rough Rider defenders, and then it bounces onto the turf, and the whistle blows then? Come on, CFL. And maybe it's not just the God Center's fault. I call the command center the God Center all the time, but it's not their fault because some referee on the field blew a whistle that shouldn't have been blown. And you're right. It's not supposed to have sounded. It ruined the most exciting play of the game, right? Tavon Campbell, one of the fastest guys in the CFL, sprinting down the sidelines. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Nathan Rourke, the Lions quarterback, has an angle on him, but still caught him at the goal line and tried to knock him out of bounds. He didn't quite make it because Campbell's so fast. But I was amazed at the catch. Thrilling part of the game, best play of the game. And you start thinking, wow, no, flags, we got to figure it out. And away they go and change the rules because somebody somebody incompetently and irrationally blew a whistle that shouldn't have been blown.
Yeah. Yeah. And that to me is the problem. Like the command center didn't have much of a say in overruling that, because they said, oh, there was a whistle.
Yeah.
We have to now call the play dead wherever the whistle was. But I'm saying, I think as the command center, you could have made it right by saying, we're going to forget that whistle happened. Everybody played. Because that's can you imagine if that's a Grey Cup game and they say, oh, just because a side official blew his or her whistle and all of a sudden the play is dead, like that one mistake caused the game. So it didn't correct the error by the official. So you have to give
scandals going on now, right? Just you think, wow, one quick whistle on something like that, you start. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but it's a bad situation to be in, that all of a sudden these weird rules are coming in to change the outcome of a game, and you can't have that. That was a great play by Tavon Campbell. It was a great play. I think it was DeMarcus Fields and Antoine Brooks Jr. were the guys who went hard after Keon Hatcher and stripped the football from him. Great football plays. Watching Nathan Rourke run after, that's an exciting play too, right? And how fast the kid is as a quarterback. Great play. Oh no, we can't allow that because it's just too exciting. You're right. It seems like it's wrong. And that's always been my complaint about the command center with the CFL. It puts itself into every game and ruins it in one way or the other. And it did that again. It did it again in the fourth quarter with the game-winning touchdown, Taylor. Yeah. It's unfathomable what this command center has done to ruin the Canadian Football League's action and flow.
They could have gotten it right, and that's the most frustrating part on that fumble. They could have gotten it right. They could have said, oh, we made a mistake in blowing the whistle. We're going to fix the error. If an official calls a pass incomplete and it's clearly complete, they're going to fix that error. Same thing with a whistle. Unless there's a play where the whistle blown and a player gives up, and certainly you can tell he's given up or is not playing anymore because he heard the whistle. Yep. That was not the case. So that to me,
nobody stopped. You're right.
Nobody stopped.
Not a single player stopped because they heard a whistle.
And it happened, a few weeks prior when Kosi Onyeka returned a fumble into the end zone. It cost the Riders a touchdown on that play. And then I think it was the preseason game in Regina when one of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers recovered a fumble and returned it all the way to the end zone. They didn't blow the whistle, and we were all thinking, like, why didn't you blow the whistle? That's clearly not a touchdown. So they were obviously instructed to let the play out at the start of the season. That was one of the points they hit home. And I'm sure now it's going to be heading into the playoffs. Let it play out. If we have to blow the whistle 10 seconds after, and the only thing to that is that you would never want to see somebody take a late hit, get injured when a play should have been blown. Mm-hmm. That's maybe the double-edged sword of letting the play out, right? Like if you,
whatever it ended up being, it was wrong. It hurts the game, and that's what the command center usually does: is hurt the game. They're supposed to help the game. All it's done is hurt the game. So, what did you think about the Riders are winning 21-19 in the fourth quarter. Nathan Rourke scrambles around, shovels an overhand pass to Keon Hatcher once again in the end zone. There's an official 10 yards away, looking perfect position, looking right at it, waves it off, incomplete. He thinks that it trapped the ball against the ground or used it. And when you watch the replay, he might have, right? It's not 100 for me. It's not 100% clear. And anybody who's objective, which I believe I am, maybe I'm being called a homer on this one. But when you watch it, you think, you know what? He might have trapped it. Maybe not. But whichever way the official called it, I would live with that. He called it incomplete. Up to the God Center it goes because they review every potential scoring play, right? And the CFL defines it. You can overrule the call if it's clear and obvious. Mm-hmm. That was not clear and obvious. So how can you overrule that if it's not clear and obvious? And it became the game-winning touchdown. And it's because the God Center decided that it was clear and obvious. It was not. Ever are you going to convince me that was a clear and obvious catch?
Yeah, that's bang on it. And if he would have called it a touchdown on the field, you could have said, we don't have enough to overturn that. Same, right? Exactly what you just said. If he's going to wave it incomplete, you can't say that there's enough evidence that that's a touchdown when he clearly uses the ground to make the catch.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah.
Again, shaking my head, and I'm not, obviously we've watched more Rider games than Lion games, and we're not saying the officials are out to get the Riders or anything, but those
The
two
conspiracy
plays,
theorists will be out about that, though, right? But
yeah,
yeah,
those
I
two
just thought the
plays,
call was wrong. They couldn't have overruled it according to their own definition, and
yes,
that
exactly.
yeah.
And did it fix a clear and obvious mistake? Well, no, because the official, I think, made the right call on the field.
Yeah, I think he did too. If you ask me one way or the other, I thought it was an incompletion. But if he called that a completion, then you say, okay, let's get rid of video review, and then I could say, okay, if that's a reception or it's not a reception. That's what he called. That's what you live with. Let's just move forward and go on with the game. Both of those plays, wouldn't you rather had no review at all and just let the plays play out?
100%.
And there's my point about the commands, replay center, command center, God center. It's stop ruining this wonderful game of Canadian football. Yep. Going to the Rams game, I saw Regina Rams game and the Hilltops Thunder games this weekend, and there were mistakes made in the officiating. Mm-hmm. There are mistakes made by the players, but it's wonderful to watch the game in its rare form. Just that's the way it's supposed to be played. Momentum, bad call, horrible call against the Rams, called pass interference that set up the game tying touchdown for the Hilltops. But you say, okay, well, that's horrible. You live with it. You talk about it. You don't have another chance to get it right or another chance to get it wrong, which review does. It just gives them another chance to get it wrong. So you live with it. And it's fun watching those amateur games. The CFL is such a wonderful sport, wonderful rules, but just get rid of the thing that's ruining the game. And that's what the command center is doing, is absolutely ruining the game.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last year heading into the playoffs.
Oh yeah, we've talked about it a lot.
On a weekly basis, yeah. But let's just hope that there's no, whether it's the semifinals, the finals, the Grey Cup, let's hope there's no command center decision that has to be made to overrule or rule a play that's deciding on one of these games. That's really what nobody needs right now. The CFL especially does not need right now.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you.
So looking ahead to the West semifinal, I guess, so BC will host Calgary. 10 weeks ago, I probably would have picked Calgary to win this game. Mm-hmm. Now BC, obviously, I think, has a better chance of coming out.
Yeah, they won 5 in a row before, or 6 in a row, right? Going in, they're on the hottest streak of any CFL team. And watching the Roughriders do such a good job against BC, you're right. I was surprised at how well Saskatchewan played against them. And obviously, they would match up pretty well if BC were to win. Calgary was so strong early in the season when they swept Saskatchewan. Their 2 meetings that you thought, oh boy, the Roughriders don't want to play them, and maybe they still don't. The game the team they would rather face probably would be the BC Lions, but playing at home is certainly going to help BC. And Calgary's capable. They're starting to get their defense back in shape. It all depends on their quarterback. Does he throw 6 interceptions or 6 touchdown passes? I guess that's the big one for Vernon Adams Jr. Is that his name?
Yeah.
For VA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, VA.
When I listen to TSN, all I ever hear is VA.
Oh, VA, yeah. Yeah, and he's going to be out to prove himself against the team that sort of cast him off this offseason, right? When they
I think so.
Yeah. Signed Nathan Rourke to a long deal. So in terms of who the Riders want to face, again, 10 weeks ago, they had a tough time against Calgary, both those games. Yeah. So Calgary obviously has a good game plan. I think a lot of teams have figured them out a little bit more. So for the Riders, I think they have a good chance if they play their brand of football.
Calgary has a better defense than BC, though.
Yes, right? Yeah.
So, and I think that's maybe the advantage that Calgary has if they were to play the Roughriders, that defense is tougher. BC's defense has come on since they added like TJ Lee in the secondary. They've revamped it a little bit, but it's still not as good as Calgary's defense. And neither of them is as good as Saskatchewan's defense.
Mm-hmm. So that'll be a good game. And then earlier in the day, the Bombers, as the crossover team, faced the Montreal Alouettes. Another intriguing matchup. I'm going to side with Montreal because I think they are a really, really good team with Davis Alexander. But based on how the Bombers have played in the playoffs, it's hard to bet against them, right?
Yeah, they're such a strong team. They know what it takes, but Chris Streveler's probably out, the backup quarterback. Zach Collaros was resting. So he hasn't had the greatest season, right? Maybe it's finally starting to catch up to Zach. I know they've rebuilt that team a little bit. The defense is still playing pretty well for Winnipeg, but Montreal, what a team they are when Davis Alexander is a quarterback. It's just, you can see the feeling and the emotion. He plays that way with a lot of heart, and they have a lot of belief in him. If he's playing and he's healthy the entire game and they don't have to use McLeod Bethel Thompson, then I think the Alouettes win it. But if it's the other way around, if Alexander gets hurt, which he seems to get hurt, he plays that way. He does make himself vulnerable sometimes. So if they were to lose him, then you can certainly see Winnipeg sneaking through in that Eastern game as a wild card.
Yeah, and then the winner, of course, will play Hamilton, which I still think whoever comes out is going to give Hamilton a run for their money. I think that Winnipeg and Montreal are both capable of beating Hamilton. But if Bo Levi Mitchell and company play outstanding football and it's a good night for them, like the Riders, I think they're still the favorite to come out of the East.
That's the most likely scenario, that Hamilton meets Saskatchewan in the Grey Cup, which has happened before, and two pretty good veteran quarterbacks with some pretty good weapons around them, but Saskatchewan to me is still the better team because of that strong defense. When I say a strong defense, that's if Saskatchewan's secondary gets back in place, right? Roland Milligan's hurt. Devon Campbell's playing the other side. Marcus Sales, the corner, does he come back? Are they all healthy? If they're all healthy, then the Rough Riders win a lot of games because of that defense. Yep. They filled in remarkably well with the injuries, but if they get everybody back, I think they still might use C.J. Rivas as a safety and use Antoine Brooks in that linebacker spot. So if they play that way, they'll be very tough to beat. And I don't think Hamilton can match up. Maybe we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit here. It's still got to get semifinal and the final, but looking ahead to long range, that still would be an intriguing matchup.
Well, we're in store for a couple of good football games this weekend in the CFL playoffs. And, of course, the Regina Rams are also playing on Saturday as well, trying to keep their season alive and maybe potentially advance to the Vanier Cup in a couple of weeks, a few weeks now in Regina. So we'll see if the Rams can keep it going, and we'll see who ends up coming to Mosaic next week to face the Riders in the West Final. Darrell, thanks as always for joining the podcast, and enjoy the football this weekend.